Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the feed. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty on the
Good morning, Bellows Falls and Keene, and welcome to the feed. It's Mike and Marty. We're here with Linda Guzynski. We're going to be talking about Vermont body therapy here in a little bit, but first, Marty with local events.
So, at the Bellows Falls Opera House this weekend, no movie, I don't think. And the classic films are going to be on hold until April 16th. I think that probably has something to do with Matilda running for 2 weeks. So the reason that there's no movie at the Opera House, at least on Friday night, is it's the first of the Ray Masuko concert series. It's James McMurtry and Betty Sue, both of whom are well known in the area. So that's Friday, March 14th, and the show is at 7:30 and the doors open at 6:30. The second Ray Masuko concert series is rolling right along a few weeks later. It's Dawn of the Buffalo. If you recall last week when Charlie Hunter was here, there is no Donna and there is no Buffalo. But that's the second of the Ray Masuko concert series on Friday the 28th.
And I just wanted to point out to Colin that there is no monitor in here either. So, anyway.
Anyhow, we continue.
Yes.
But so, speaking of things that are happening at the Opera House, Matilda the Musical will be starting on Friday, April 4th. There'll be shows on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following weekend on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet to Matilda, go on to the Opera House website, get your tickets. It's going to be, as usual, it's a David Stern production. It's going to be a wonderful performance. David is actually coming on not this week, but the following.
Next week.
The last week. The last Wednesday of the month, David will be here to go into a little more detail on exactly what you'll see at the Matilda the Musical.
It looks pretty fascinating. I've seen some rehearsal
the
pictures.
set is
amazing.
And I think he's been emphasizing the fact that it's not a children's, like people think of it as the children's movie and the whole bit, but there's definitely an adult component to it. So we are coming into St. Patrick's Day weekend. So I got your whole weekend planned for you. You can go on Friday night to see James McMurtry. Then on Saturday, if you're still wanting some music, you can go to the St. Patty's Day pre-gaming at the American Legion. That is with Mosey Down. And if you want, I'd reverse these, and I apologize, that's my fault, Colin. If you want food before the St. Patty's Day, pre-gaming at Mosey Down at the American Legion, you can go to the First Congregational Church in Westminster. They are doing a St. Patrick's Day dinner from 4:30 to 6:30. The full corned beef and cabbage, all the fixins, $15. And then if you're still hungry on Sunday morning, you can go to the Moose. They're serving breakfast from 7:30 to 10:30. And I like that was actually literally what they used to advertise their breakfast. So I pulled it up too, because nothing better than Pooh sitting down to breakfast. So Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today. I'm so excited because I've gone and seen you a couple times, and I just want to share the word of all the wonderful things you do. Yay. So tell us a little bit about yourself to get started.
I am a physical therapist assistant, and right now I work a couple days a week up at Mount Escutney, outpatient physical therapy. And I also have a manual therapy license, so I also am working in Bellows Falls, right down the hall. And I do some fascial counterstrain.
So what is fascia?
Fascia is this new organ that has always been with us. We didn't grow a new thing. It's there, but now science, Western science, sees it, is starting to understand it. And it is a different way of looking at the body. I brought along a model of, this is called a biotensegrity model. And it's just a concept. It isn't accurate at all. It's very simplified. But if you look at this model, you've got something that may look somewhat like a vertebra. And I can compress that and it springs back. And that looks more like what our bodies do than the way I was taught when I went to school is you got the bones and then you got another layer and then you got another layer and you got another layer. It's not that that's not true, but the way things go together, it's more like we have some bungee cords. So the fascia are these bungee cords and they're fluid filled and they carry information throughout our bodies and yeah, that's what fascia is. It makes up a third of our body.
But it's like it's like a web then, or is it like?
It is. I do have pictures. I don't know if that shows up. I thought these, if
Well, just if it showed the cover, I think
Okay.
that's an interesting illustration there. That
how about
doesn't
that?
show up too well, but
There we go.
Zoom.
There we go.
All right. Okay. So that's an idea of what fascia looks like. It's microtubules, so it can be as thin as a human hair. It changes direction. If you engage this, like in a tough manner, it's going to pull back at thousands of pounds of pressure. But then you can also, it's almost like a semi-solid, semi-liquid. You can also, if I put it together, so this is fascia counter strain, which means I'm bringing those ends together, it softens up and can flow better. So I'm working with
and what would be the purpose of fascia then? I mean, it's some evolutionary purpose, right? Does it protect our body? Does it do? I guess that's a tough question.
Right. I think fascia and the fascial system is the fundamental basic aspect of what our body is. If we dissolve everything out of our body except for the fascia, we're going to be left with a three-dimensional ghost where you can see every blood vessel, you can see every organ, everything happening in your brain. It goes through everything and it's carrying messages. It's innervated, which means it's a sensory organ. So it's sending lots of information back and forth, and it's got these highways that carry messenger cells, right? And that's the way our bodies work. You may have heard that during the COVID pandemic, the cytokines, which are messenger cells, when there's a problem, they go to the site. They act a little bit like what I call chicken little cells. Help, help. The roof is falling. The sky is falling. And then other cells come in like fibroblasts that start patching things up. And your body can react to trauma, to bacteria, funguses, obviously getting cut, something like that. And it's going to react by plastering that area up. And that's where you'll get some restrictions. If those chicken little cells can't flow and get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we go to the video?
Yeah, we visited Linda the other day and we took a video of her working with Marty, and just so you can get a concept of what this actually looks like, because it's a difficult thing to describe. So if we go to the video.
Thinking of the fascial system fundamentally changes how we think of the body. I think even what I'm doing is putting her in a point of ease. So rather than getting in there and stretching or really getting into the painful spot, by putting that bungee cord, right, in a situation of ease, and I can feel it start pulsing. And as it's pulsing, it's releasing that fluid of inflammation. So it's releasing chemicals that keep you jammed up, and that you can't overcome it. Like our bodies are chemical reactors. They're just reacting to whatever chemicals, whatever messages that they're getting. So tell people to stretch anymore. Like range of motion is really good. Explore your range of motion. Like you just don't force anything. You just keep asking the body, okay, what's next? It's kind of like a game of pickup sticks, right? Of like, oh, is it, or I like to think of like, if you have a ball of yarn, you can't just grab something and yank it. You have to unwind it. You have to pay attention to how it's wound, to how, and that's why it's fun for me. It's because it's a big puzzle to figure out. So I get to constantly feel these puzzles. I'm feeling for a pulse back on this backhand, and that pulse is telling me, okay, the lymphangions, the little muscles in the lymph system that are not centralized, they're all along the system, all along, a big channel, and they're pump, 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 pump. I can feel them start pumping, and they'll pump that fluid through there, and then you will magically be able to move better.
Well, that is fascinating. And also, I think it really illustrates that it's a gentle process. It's not.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
A gentle, relaxing. Well,
I was just going to say,
you were the person being processed.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very, and you were talking about that there's, there's some fascial treatments that are more, I wouldn't use the word, I don't think you use the word harsh, but are more, you feel them more. This one, you might feel it. I can feel it sometimes a little bit, what you're doing. Like I can kind of feel something release, not like sometimes in like a chiropractic session where you can definitely feel something release, but I definitely, like the minute I get up off the table, it's like, wow. So it's like, it doesn't feel like you're really doing anything until you go to move or you go to get your shoulders away from your ears. And now they go away from your ears quite easily and they stay there.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think that we are kind of conditioned to, like almost like a no pain, no gain.
Right.
And so that's why people might be like, well, I don't really think she did anything.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, you were doing a lot, but it was very subtle.
Right. Yes, subtle but effective. And the reason I like this technique is it is the most effective thing I've found. I've had patients have almost miraculous healings for things that I didn't think could be addressed. Now, it doesn't magically heal everything, but it certainly helps remove restrictions from our physical movement. It will help us get better posture, which we can get a better breath of air, calms our body down. We can hold all sorts of things in our body, and I don't know which starts first, the chicken or the egg, but there's even like emotional tension that can be held in our body that gets released. So sometimes people will have an emotional response, and sometimes people just feel very sleepy and tired until they get up off that table. And a lot of times people say, wow, I feel springy. I had a little girl tell me, I'm taller now. Yeah. And I think the young ones, we haven't built up layers of restrictions when you're young. So I had a 12-year-old that told me she got taller afterwards. And as we get older, so there's channels that go through there, and we have many routes to get through, and we take alternative paths. I kind of think of myself as like clearing the roads. If we had a bunch of detours and we don't have much channels left, I'm just gently opening the roads, getting that flow better. Once your flow is better and you can move better and you can, align your body better, your joints align better. And your joints align better, they move better. If I'm hunched over, I can't fully lift up my arm, right? Now, sometimes if we're restricted in here, we can't unhunch. So if I can help somebody unhunch and, get a little bit straighter through there, now that arm can fully move because that joint is in a better position.
And that makes 100% sense. You talked about, You talked about, we had a conversation, I think this was after my session, but that people hold, you spoke a little bit to it, but people hold trauma. Sometimes people hold trauma in their body, and they do a lot of work to address that trauma. They do a lot of like psychological work to address that trauma, but your body still holds it. And that this can actually help to release that from your body, which I think would be a interesting component for someone that's maybe they're just feeling like they're not getting somewhere with trauma release because it's staying in it's in their body.
Yeah,
Their
our
body has-
bodies have great memories. And if we haven't been able to process that, this is another modality. I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm just working with the body, but I'm completely comfortable with people. If they need to have a cry, they get to have a cry. It's part of the process. I have to say, even in class, sometimes where we're all trying to be very technical and we're learning this, there are those of us on the table that are like, ooh, there's something in there.
That's interesting. How did you find this? How did you come to this?
So, like I said, I work up at Mount Escutney, and I am in physical therapy, and I help people. And I had one patient who was just fantastic. He was doing, he had a dietitian, and he was changing his diet up. He was doing all his exercises, but he had something called neuropathy, which is where you feel a tingling in your feet or hands. But he also had stenosis, where the spine is starting to compress and change form a little bit. And he's like, what can I do with this? And I didn't have an answer because I didn't think there was any way to cure it. So I said, sorry. A couple weeks later, he comes back and he tells me his neuropathy's gone. And I wanted to know why and how. And he gave me the card of a person, and I went to see her, and I had some restriction in my shoulder, and I'd done PT on it, and I've done a lot of different physical activity throughout my life, and I figured that's as good as it's gonna get. And this woman, in one session, got me over the finish line. Now, I've been doing PT, and so this is really helpful if you also have your own regime and thing you're doing. This is a great assist with that.
And I think you talked about, like, you don't necessarily recommend stretching anymore because they don't need to. But I also, like, sometimes when you go through PT or you do different programs and say, we got to stretch this and you got to stretch that, and you just can't stretch it. So, like, you can't, like, this helps you to get to that point if you decide you want to stretch it. Or it makes you more able to do the stretch as it would be beneficial to you.
Absolutely.
If you're restricted, doesn't matter how much you try to do it. If that restriction isn't removed, what are you stretching?
Yeah.
Like,
so I'm not into intense stretching unless, like, a little caveat for post-knee surgery. Sometimes extreme stretching is necessary. But in general, when working with range of motion in our bodies, I like to say like a 3 out of 10, where you're stretching into something, you can kind of feel, that feels good, but you're not doing anything extreme. I think when we get into that extreme movement, we put other parts of our body at risk. And there must be some restriction that's holding us back. So if I did have one, more than one, I've had some patients that can't even tie their shoes, right? Like they can't bend over to tie their shoes. Cancer and cancer treatments will make you pretty crispy. It'll stick things together pretty well. So once you are completely clear of cancer for a year, then we can go in and do some loosening. Now, you do have to be clear of cancer because we're opening channels that would carry that to a distant location. So you need to be clear. But then doing some work, that person could touch their toes in one session, right? And that's working with the spine.
It's amazing.
It is. It's really fascinating.
It is. I love it.
How do people get to see you? I mean, can you self-refer, or when you're at a Scutney, you must be working with a referral from a doctor and a doctor's order.
Correct.
But when you're working here with your manual license, can
Right.
people just contact you and say, "Hey, I'd like to be
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have my own office, and that is geared towards people that they're not quite appropriate for a referral to physical therapy. So they're doing pretty good, but they maybe got a little bit of a hitch in their step, or they've already got a workout regime and they just want it to be more effective. I can help them actually be stronger, because if we're getting more blood flow to that muscle can build, right? So that is my private office here,
Right.
is what that's for. They can contact me online.
Yeah.
Give me a
I
call.
think
Yeah,
we
we
have
put
your
up the-
contact
yep,
information.
there's a
We'll
contact
make
info
sure
sheet.
make sure
Yep.
that's up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a call. That's not my email. Proton.me. PR.
Proton. Okay, I
Yeah.
don't know if that was me or them that spelled that wrong. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay,
Six
but anyway,
Wi-Fi.
so
They can-
people can self-refer. And
They can self-refer to
they-
me, but you need to be in walking around shape.
Yeah, oh
and-
yeah,
and if
actually,
you- yeah,
you
it-
would do some sort of evaluation and say, well, maybe you're not appropriate.
Right.
Or, yes, go on down. Yeah.
Right, but if you're post-surgical and you have a referral from your doctor, absolutely come on up to Mount Ascutney, the outpatient PT up there. And there's fantastic people that work up there with all different skills. I think I work with 8 different PTs.
Yeah.
Now, is this kind of a new? You said that they've just distinguished fascia as a new organ. Is this technique? Is there more to this technique? Is there more that you have to learn, or is what's the next step?
Oh, for me, I'm
Yeah.
going to be spending the next year like taking every class I can in this. So I've taken 3 classes, integrated that information, and it's effective already. It's effective already. I'm already using this every day of my life. But I'm going to take as much as I possibly can. There are more advanced practitioners, of course, that deal with the central nervous system. Some conditions, long COVID, things like that. Sorry, what'd you ask me?
I just asked you where you're like what was
What
next for
directions
you?
were you
Yeah.
going in your professional career?
Oh, me, I'm just going to learn as much as
Yeah.
this as possible. I love doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one of the things. I guess when we were working at the gym, they would talk about fascia and they would say it would get stuck. And remember, then we would use these foam rollers.
Foam rolling.
Yeah, was that like the beginning of this? Your technique is obviously much more sophisticated than a piece of foam. Yeah, but is that where this sort of started? Because that people discovered from using the foam rollers or talking about this that
To the
more research
myofascial
came.
release.
So I'm going to the Jones Institute, and Dr. Jones was a physical therapist, and he found if he put people in positions of ease, he could release some things. So he started out counter strain, and then Brian Tuckey, who's in Maryland, is leading the Jones Institute now, and he's worked with Dr. Jones, and then he's making it more specific to the underlying anatomy. So I'm working specifically with this vein or this organ.
Oh, yes,
in
that's what I
a-
mean. That's much
yeah.
more specific and sophisticated
Yeah,
than
yeah,
me rolling around on a foam roller.
right. I mean, if a roller feels good.
It never did.
So we have just about a minute. So I guess maybe the last question is, if somebody's wondering if like what is a practical application? You've mentioned a lot of them, but maybe somebody doesn't have a real specific thing going on, but they just want to feel better. Would
Yeah.
that?
Yep. So, I mean, it increases your ability to move more freely. It can decrease body anxiety. Decrease pain. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What about inflammation?
I am releasing inflammation.
Okay.
Yeah, it isn't specifically a lymph massage, but it helps if you have all your lymph. It helps get those channels open. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's it. We hope you'll come back.
Yes.
And give us, another
Another update.
update on what you're
And
doing
more
and
theory.
more things because
Thank you.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
we can
I'd love
never
to.
because we all want to feel better, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oops.
Whoops, there we go.
New batteries is really loud now. Okay, bye, community.
That's it for us. We'll see you next week.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike